Hello, as promised, I wanted to start putting some videos on my channel where I kind of go over all the different things you can do with my stencils. I get asked all the time different questions on how to use certain stencils or how to achieve certain results. So I thought this would be a really great place to just share info, and I can maybe send people to a video if they have questions in my Etsy shop. So the number one question I get asked the most is how to create faces from my stencils, or how to achieve the results that I do. So I wanted to do some demos for you. So I have something really formal where you can kind of look and get a closer look at how I create all the different paper dolls. I have some here. So for example, this stencil is this paper doll. I have this paper doll, which actually I have to say I did not make this one. This one was made by Julianne Haas, but it's the same kind of thing. She uses the same techniques as I do. Here is another one. This one comes from this stencil. So I'm going to kind of share with you how I like to work with these. Some of my stencils have faces, so I started adding some faces when I first did my first batch, which is still to this day my favorite to use and the most popular in my shop. It's just paper dolls, number one. This set didn't really have faces. So the next subsequent sets kind of had a couple here and there, and I've added quite a few with faces. I have a stencil for drawing faces, and then I have larger stencils with faces. So I was going to show you a little bit of everything just to give you some ideas and techniques that'll work best for you. You can use any kind of paper. It really doesn't matter. However, I prefer watercolor paper because a lot of the techniques that I use, I find easiest to use with watercolors. I have my trusty Renaissance Polska watercolors, and I also like to use a Stabilo All water soluble pencil. It says aquarellable, which I think is just French for watercolor pencil. So water soluble. So because I like to work that way with my paper dolls, sometimes I use paint, sometimes I use other things. My favorite thing to work on is watercolor paper because I can kind of saturate the paper and not have to worry too much. Now, there's plenty of watercolor papers out there. I use all kinds. I use cheap stuff from like the dollar store on up to, pricier paper. This is Fabriano. And actually, my boyfriend got it for me years ago on Valentine's Day when I first started getting into watercolors. He gave me a watercolor set and paper, and he got me this hot press Fabriano paper, which is my favorite to this day. Hot press paper is very, very smooth, like a cardstock, whereas cold press, which is more common watercolor paper, that paper is a little bumpier. It has a little more texture, which is still fine. I use that actually more often. But I splurged recently because I was somewhere where they had this and I got this big pad. So I'll put some links in my description too, in case you wanted to get something that I'm using. I think this, I forget how much it was. It was like $30 or $35 because there were quite a few sheets on here. But for me, I use it just really for the faces when I'm doing people. And so, one sheet I could get like 5 or 6 people from. So, it kind of goes a long way. Anyway, so we're going to start simply. I thought the first thing I would do is work with some paper doll stencils that have no faces. And what I like to do, because I'm just like everyone else, I make mistakes or stuff doesn't come out the way I want it. So I kind of do a trial run with my my stencils. So this is what I mean. I will go through lightly with just like a cheapy mechanical pencil, like any kind is fine. And I will trace the stencil and I'll kind of loosely trace the figure. Now, the reason why I do this, and then I'll kind of tweak it because it is a template. Like it's so funny, but even if you trace this, because of the way that you hold your pencil, like maybe you held it more off to one side or off to another, when you pull it up, you might decide like, oh, I want this to be rounder or flatter, because the human hand can't like do it perfectly every time. It's going to come out different, which is fine. So it's a template. You're just going to tweak it and kind of go along the stencil and just kind of make it look the way you want it to look. So I've got my face in there and I'm going to kind of lighten up my pencil lines. Nothing too crazy because I'm just going to leave them. But the first thing I'm going to do before I do anything else is get some color on there. I'm going to grab my favorite brush. I usually use a lot of flat brushes. I forgot to grab it, sorry. And I usually grab like my favorite flat brush. A lot of people don't use flat brushes. I use them all the time. It's just, I don't know why. It's just my favorite. And I'm just going to put some color in there for the skin tone. So I'm going to put that in already because it's very likely that I'm going to cover this up with paper and that sort of thing. And if I want cheek colors, then I'll put that in now. While this is wet, it's okay if I got that in her hair. I'll just put some cheek color here now because while it's wet, it looks a little bit more vibrant. I'm just doing it very lightly while it's wet so it kind of blends in. When this dries, it'll be less prominent, but it will be there. And the reason why I do this ahead of time is once you go to play around with your pencil, and I'll show you the really simple techniques that I use, if you don't like it, then you're not going to feel bad about not doing anything else. I'm not going to go too far with getting this paper doll ready because if I save the face till last and I don't like it, I'm going to be really frustrated. So what I'm doing right now is just marking these really quickly. So I'll do another one real fast. This might have to be a 2-part video. Who knows? I'm just winging it here. Did I get her hair? Yeah. Okay. So again, I'm just going to go through, connect the lines because it's a stencil and they have bridges and just see if I like how I did it. So I might change it around. Oops, I got some paint on my hand. That's fine. So I'm letting this dry because you definitely don't want to go in with your Stabilo if this is wet. So that's why I'm going to work on another shade. Okay, and I like to mix the skin tones personally. It's just, boring. For me, I like having different skin colors, so it's really kind of like the real world where everybody looks different. So I'm going to do a darker color here for this one. And what I'm showing you is more techniques. I'm not like a fine watercolor artist by any means. I just like using them because they're really fun to play with. So, okay, I have a confession. You see these black things, these dots in the paint there? It's literally dirt. Because I dropped one of my plants on my watercolors the other day and I thought I got all the dirt out, but it's still there. So I'm just going to give her cheeks. Okay. just like that. And she's going to dry. Keep in mind that when watercolor goes on, it looks very, very dark and vibrant. But as it dries, it really lightens up. Like this was really dark when I put on. It looks barely there right now. And this is a good trick. So even, you know, sometimes you'll get something in your watercolors or the paper will come up, the paper pulp, whatever. Just leave it until it's completely dry and then you can brush it away. If you try to brush it away while it's there, obviously you're going to smear it all over the place. All right. So this face is dry. So I'm going to bring the camera down a little bit so you can see a little better. Okay. And I came up with a really simple way to just make these faces so that anybody could do it. And it's a 4-step technique where you do 2 semicircles, a smaller semicircle for the nose, and then like 2 little mountains. And you want to try and line up the middle of this lowest point with the middle of the nose, ideally. And then you want a jar of water, which I have here. I have a little paper towel, which you probably can't see. There's my jar of water. I got a paper towel here, okay? And I have really fine brushes, which let me tell you, after doing this for so long, I only just got these like 3 weeks ago. It only just occurred to me that there are really tiny fine brushes out there, and it's gonna work better for controlling this aquarelle. So I'm gonna use, this is a 2-0 brush, and I don't have like brand preferences or anything since it took me that long to get a brush. So what I do is I wet the brush and then I tap it dry on the paper towel, and I make sure that there are no huge beads of water here, because what will happen is you'll be working and that bead of water will slide down onto your brush and get all over your face. So, and sometimes I'll just test it on my hand. And what I'm doing, see, this is why I love these brushes, because they leave so much less water. So what I'm doing is I'm going just along the Stabilo line, just ever so slightly. And then I'm going to rinse off my brush because now it's picked up some Stabilo and I don't want to bring more color to the next eye. And I'm just blending it ever so slightly and pulling it down because it's kind of creating a shading effect. I don't know if you can see that there. Just ever so slightly. And then I'm going to go straight to the side of the nose and I'm going to pull the Stabilo out in 2 tiny semicircles. See how that just creates a nostril look? I mean, it's such an amazing pencil. And then I'm going to go to the lips and I'm going to kind of try and use the brush to blend in the lips and blend them in. Now, I want a bottom lip, so sometimes I'll pull from here if I feel like there's a lot of Stabilo there. But what I did is I just took my brush and I dipped it on the tip of my pencil like this, and now I'm trying to tone it down. I don't want it like super dark. And I'm just going to make another small half circle here for her lips. Okay. And I'm going to leave that. I'm not going to go too crazy because I can always come in and add something later. And I'm going to keep my brush pretty dry. I'm just touching the Stabilo ever so slightly to get some more color on the tip of my brush because it's still slightly damp. And I'm adding a line there. Sometimes I just actually go in and add a pencil, which you can do as well. And that's it. That's all I do. I could, like, if I wanted, now that I have this little lip mark, add just a smidge of some watercolor in there. if I wanted. Sometimes I'll add like a little bit over here. But it's dicey. It's dicey because the Stabilo will start to separate. Okay. Now you can see here, I'm gonna brush away. I might even use my eraser. Brush away that dirt. And that came right off. So again, super, super easy way to add a face. Okay, so you just add the skin color first, come in with your little semicircles, nose, two little mountains, and that's it. You get your brush wet, and you just kind of slowly blur it, I guess, blend it underneath, pull it out on the nose, make it in circles, and then just start to slowly blend the lips. Do you see how it just comes together so beautifully and so easily? It's such a simple technique, and it really makes you look better than you are. Okay, and then I can go in. She really needs eyebrows, and I'll just add them. Most of the time I add them with pencil. Sometimes I'll do it with Stabilo. Okay, so that's how you do a simple face with no face. Now, when you have a face, okay, you can stencil with acrylic paint, pull it up, boom, you're done. You can stencil it with watercolors, pull it up, and boom, you're done. Or you can do the same technique here and use the face as a template. So I'm going very, very lightly with my pencil, okay? Because I'm new. Let's pretend I'm new. I don't know how to draw, and I want to be cautious. So again, you know, go in with some color on here. Watercolor does dry pretty quickly, and the nice thing is, wow, there's still so much gook in there. The nice thing about watercolor is you can use like a heating tool of some sort and get it dry in like seconds if you're really wanting to hurry. I'm gonna add some cheeks on this one, and I might even just put them in here on the lips ahead of time. Sometimes this can backfire, it can bleed, and I might even do it here too. Okay. All right, so that's that. We're gonna let that dry. I'm gonna work on a big face, okay? I'm gonna trace her hair. This is also one of my favorite stencils. I love this face. And I'm just going to trace the lines, okay? And then I can come in and play with them once I pull it out. So it's a template to help me, because if you don't know how to draw, that's the whole point of these stencils. It's to help you get a little more comfortable drawing, okay? And I mean, honestly, all you have to do is just connect the little bridges, which are open spaces that hold the stencil together. Otherwise, stencil would fall apart. So you need these little bridges. You can leave them in. Sometimes that looks cool. And again, because the human hand isn't perfect, like there might be some parts that just don't look right. So you can come in and just tweak it however you want. Okay. Oops, I forgot our nostril. But I'm just marking this with my pencil. Now, again, let's pretend I put the color in because I'm still waiting for that. I'm gonna do the same thing here with the Stabilo, okay? So I'm gonna go through the lines. And you do want to keep your Stabilo very sharp for this. And you don't want to push down really hard because they are super, super dark. So even along the lips, like I'm barely touching it because I know I don't like how this lip is lower than the other. I'm just gonna pull everything down. I'm just gonna do it very lightly because the Stabilo is so powerful, okay? And I'm gonna make some pupils for her, okay? Making the pupils also really kind of pulls it together. And I almost always kind of start right on this line, okay? So in this case, I'm kind of doing it a little bolder than on the other ones because the face is here. So I'm not gonna create the illusion of a face. It's here. So I'm going to work with this stencil. I'm gonna rinse it off and tab it between each thing because the Stabilo goes on the pencil, and if you have too much, you can't do as much with the shading. But you can see it really just does so much on its own with shading. So I'm gonna go over the lips here. I like to pull it out a little bit at the corners. I like to kind of, oh, I got a big thing of water there, so I'm just gonna be careful. I'll leave that in her lip. And already, can you see how crazy it just immediately creates effects? It's so amazing. So, you know, what I did here is I used the mechanical pencil to trace where I wanted everything to go, and then I just went over the mechanical pencil with a Stabilo. So that way it's a little bit more controllable. I might leave this area here where I have pencil, like I'll combine them and I'll just leave that because I want it lighter. I don't want it this dark right here. So I'll leave it in the pencil, you know, and I'm just kind of playing around. I can go in now, although I might regret this. This might not come out well because there's so much water. And add some color to her lips. And again, because I don't have too much Stabilo up there, I might add it like to her little eyelid area. And that's really bold, so I might rinse it off and just kind of blend it out just like you would eye makeup, right? And see how that just comes together. Like, again, easy peasy, right? And then lastly, I'm just going to show you, so we did the same thing here. We traced the face, okay? And I'm going to just go through here. Sometimes what I'll do if I want to really set a lip is I'll just pull it in the middle, and I won't do the tops or the bottoms because colors sometimes can give the illusion, and you don't always have to have like you know, you don't always have to have like such dark bold lines, especially on the top lip. So I am putting a little on the bottom of my brush. There we go. Just to get that through there. Okay. And now I'm going to rinse it off. I'm going to do the same thing I've been doing and just kind of blend out under the eyelids. And just kind of jiggling it around. And just kind of pulling everything down because it adds that shading. Okay. Sometimes I'll even like blend it out right here. And I'm going to show you a little trick for the eyebrows. So let's say you put some on the eyebrows. If you do, again, you don't want really dark eyebrows, do it super, 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 super light. So, I mean, they'll pop out, but the cool thing is you can pull it down a little. So it's popping out, I'm pulling it down from the eyebrow. And then that gives you a little bit more of a nose. All right. So those are my tricks. I think I'll do another separate video on just how to draw this, use this stencil. But this is a great way for using any of the stencils in my product line. So any of the paper doll stencils, abstract paper dolls, whether there's faces or not, you can do it both ways by adding faces with the Stabilo and just some simple watercolors, or penciling it in and going over with Stabilo. So I hope that helped you. And I'll put some links to my shop for some of the paper doll things too if you're looking for those. So everything will be in the description. See you later.